There ain't no good guy, there ain't no bad guy. There's only you and me, and we just disagree. Hi, this is Scott Ott with Stephen Green and Bill Whittle, and this Right Angle is brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com. And gentlemen, John Bolton is out, literally within the hour of when we're recording this. The National Security Advisor says he resigned. President Trump said he resigned him. He fired him. And let me just read you what the President of the United States said on Twitter. I informed John Bolton last night that his services are no longer needed at the White House. This was, again, from the President's tweet. I disagreed strongly with many of his suggestions, as did others in the administration. And therefore, I asked John for his resignation, which was given to me this morning. I thank John very much for his service. John later said that, in fact, that he had decided to resign and told the president the night before and then slept on it and submitted his resignation in the morning. That's neither here nor there. He's gone. Stephen Green, the third national security advisor during the Trump administration's relatively brief term. And let me just lay this before you. H.R. McMaster disagreed with the president. Now, John Bolton disagrees with the president. Jim Mattis, former defense secretary, has a book out just now, but he resigned because he had disagreements with the president. What's with a president who hires people that disagree with him and doesn't keep them around as a team of rivals, but cans them because they disagree with him?
Well, in Bolton's case, I think this was inevitable. In fact, I know this was inevitable. Bolton and Trump just have entirely different worldviews when it comes to foreign policy. Trump is determined to get us all the way, or at least almost out of the way, out of Afghanistan, which I think is the right thing to do. John Bolton disagrees. This is an important policy disagreement, and it's probably impossible for these two to continue working on that basis. It's just the way that is. As for Trump, he remade his fortune firing people on TV. I think this is just part of his process. This is the way he functions as a boss. Let me give you a little bit of family lore. All the hubbub online today, and I'm sure it will be in all the papers tomorrow, is, did Trump fire him? Did he quit? What really happened? And the fact is, we're probably never going to know. My grandfather used to own a small company back in St. Louis where I grew up, and my dad worked for him in summers as a kid, and then after college, he came on as a full-time employee. And the two of them, my dad would have been in his mid-20s, late 20s at the time, had a pretty serious disagreement about something, and my dad quit. Or my dad was fired. It depends on who you asked. Dad swore up and down that my grandfather got so mad at him that he fired his own son from the company. My grandfather swears up and down that Dad got in such a huff that he stormed off and quit. And between the two, we will never know the truth. I suspect I know which one is correct, but the fact is we will never, ever know. And this is within, a tight-knit family that is never going to know the truth. So what actually happens in the Trump White House, or in any White House for that matter, we'll never know. What amuses me is the press is going to gin this up into the biggest disagreement ever. And John Bolton, who they spent years demonizing as a warmonger and all the rest, is now going to be portrayed as the civilized victim of Trump's wrath, or however they decide to spin it. But mark my words, that's going to happen.
Now, Bill, in fairness, I'm going to ask you essentially the same question I asked Steve, but in fairness, it's not really about the media's reaction to this story. I think any sentient being would look at a situation where a president of the United States who ran for office largely on his business credentials, saying that he'll surround himself with great people, has somehow managed to surround himself with great people that he doesn't agree with, and then fires him. Now, again, as I said to Steve, it's one thing to say, I'm going to hire somebody like John Bolton, even though I know we disagree, just because I want to hear that alternative viewpoint, and we'll keep him on because I want to be challenged. It's another thing to bring him on as if you didn't even know what he believed, or to bring him on and then just sort of petulantly fire him because you can't stand the fact that somebody under you is disagreeing with you. Bill, Trump supporters are immediately leaping to the defense of this guy. Anybody he fires was a scoundrel to begin with. You remember what they did to H.R. McMaster. But it just keeps happening. At some point, don't even Trump supporters have to look at this and go, maybe the guy is not that great of an HR guy, meaning HR human resources, not HR McMaster.
Yes. Yes. I think you could probably make the case that that's true. So let's just see if we can just kind of untangle the generalities here. A good leader would want people who disagree with them to speak up. And if you're a good general, you want your colonels and your majors. In fact, you want a private to be able to come in and say, sir, this is a bad idea because of this. But at the same time, there comes a point when the person who you've hired to disagree with you disagrees with you all the time. You didn't hire him to disagree with you. You hired him to not be afraid to disagree with you, right? And so Bolton comes to Trump with something he disagrees with. Trump thinks it over, decides, all right, well, I've taken your advice, but I considered your advice, but I'm going to do it this way. When it becomes the kind of thing where somebody's disagreeing with you all the time, then that's not productive for you or for the person that you hired. So I suspect that this is the case. In defense of the point you're making in your question, some very good people have come and gone out of that administration. People I admired anyway. Let's put it that way. But ultimately, I come down to the fact that it is our system of government that these people serve at the pleasure of the president, and at the very least, it tells me that this president has a pretty clear idea of what he wants to do and how he wants to do it.
Well, I certainly don't disagree with Bill's assertion that people who serve in the White House serve at the pleasure of the president. It is certainly the president's prerogative to fire whom he will. I think that the stunning thing that keeps coming up in this administration is his apparent inability to hire well. Let's just assume that everything that the president's defenders say about the people who got fired is true. One must ask, how do you keep hiring people who are in such virulent disagreement with you? And frankly, anybody who hires John Bolton after his years on cable television and in presidential administrations with one of the most clear-cut hawk positions of anybody you'll ever meet, one of the strongest defenders of Israel, one of the strongest detractors of tyrannical regimes from North Korea to Iran and beyond, to bring him into the administration and act like you're surprised that he has strong opinions about how we should treat our enemies is naivete at best. So I hope that people who were supporters of the president don't feel compelled to now jump down the throat of John Bolton because he got fired, because frankly, if he hadn't got fired, he'd be the greatest guy in the world. I just think we need to have some honesty in how we approach our view of the president and our view of his actions. He's done many good things, but the guy's not flawless. And frankly, he's beginning to look more and more like a guy who does not know how to build a team around him, and that the only way to stay engaged and connected to the Trump administration is to be related to him by blood or marriage. For Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making this possible.